Hi, happy Thursday, Courageous Chicks. I'm so glad to be back with you to talk more about the imposter syndrome and on the book study we're doing with the secret thoughts of successful women. And so far we have talked a lot about what it is and sort of why it happens, and it helps us sort of understand more about the context of it. And last week we talked about society's assumptions about women's competence and sort of some stereotypes, and help us to get a little bit of perspective that way. And today it gets a little bit more personal, and the title of this chapter is Hiding Out. And there are several areas where we make choices that sort of keep us in this feeling, in this thought, in this situation of imposter syndrome. So we'll go through a little bit of those today. And I know that people say that you teach what you need to learn and remember. And for me, this book has been so helpful in sharing it, because I have learned a lot, sort of really gives me some good foundation and perspective on some of the topics that we've covered. So last week, we talked about, at the end, identifying something that you needed to ask for. And so if you did ask for that last week, what came up for you? How did that go? Did you ask for it? If you didn't, why not? And just a little bit of something to think about as we kind of go through the things that we talk about today. Really, there's so many options and decisions we have, and these are all about deliberate choices that we make. So hiding out. One of the things that can happen with imposter syndrome, with all of these situations and choices that we make, is that it can really become exhausting and stressful. And the deal is that it's sort of a vicious cycle. That the first area that she talks about is over preparing and really putting in just massive amounts of effort so that this feeling of being uncovered as being not as competent maybe won't be overshadowed. If I put in all this work, then it might not matter as much. If my level of competence isn't what they say, it'll overshadow that. But the problem is that becomes a vicious cycle, because then we put in all this effort, and not to say that we shouldn't be working hard, but we over prepare, and then that becomes the norm. And then the next time we feel like we have to go above and beyond that, and it just keeps wearing us down, and we get exhausted. And so that over preparing can be a way of coping with the fact that we feel like we're an imposter, and we feel like somebody might be soon to find out for that. The second way that we can cope with this is holding back. So if I don't give 100% of effort, and this is sort of, I think of this as the other side of the first one. If I don't give 100%, then I've got a built-in excuse that says, well, I didn't really try. So, if I didn't get the job, it's because I really didn't put in all the effort. Or if I didn't, get whatever, it's because I really didn't. So I've got a built-in excuse for me if I hold back a little bit. The third area of coping for the imposter syndrome can be a low or ever-changing profile. So this might be a case where if we're in a job, maybe we stay there because it's really safe, and we don't have to venture outside of our comfort zone and find out that, or to get ourselves in a situation where we feel like somebody might find out that I really don't know as much as I say I do. And so if we stay in the job we're in, if we stay where we're at and we don't venture out, just kind of keep a low profile, don't make waves, nobody's going to notice, and I won't be found out. Use of charm or personality as a hiding out. I thought this one was really interesting. But if you think about it, that it's another excuse where we can say that somebody gave us the job, or I got this because they liked me, and downplay really our competence and brush that off to say that, oh no, there's another reason. And so maybe we go out of our way sometimes to, or let's just say that maybe you've seen people or people who are like overly charming and do this in a way to cover up some things. So sometimes this can be another coping mechanism for us. So the fifth area is procrastination. And I kind of think of this as similar to number 2, which was holding back. Because if we wait till the last minute to do something, whether it's creating a report or whatever it is, preparing for something, then we don't spend the time to do the quality job. We've got that built-in excuse again that says, well, I didn't have time. I ran out of time, and so yeah, I didn't do my best job, so it's okay. Never finishing, starting something, keeping it a work in progress all of the time. If we never finish, we don't have to hear that criticism from somebody that maybe doesn't think our work is the best, or that we're fearful of we might get criticism. So if we don't finish something, maybe if somebody does make a comment toward us, we've got an excuse that says, oh, it's not done yet. I'm not done yet. I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress. So that's the reason why it's not as good as it could be. And then the 7th area is self-sabotage. So this one is, well, all of these really are deliberate choices that we make and options that we have, but self-sabotage can be similar, can be a combination of all of these things that we've just talked about. Again, waiting to the last minute, procrastination. If we're afraid that taking that new job might really put us in a situation where we're feeling uncomfortable, maybe we stay up late, or maybe we use other coping mechanisms, alcohol, food, and we get up the next morning ready for the interview and we don't feel good. And so, well, I didn't do as well in the interview because I wasn't feeling my best. Well, you made a choice the night before to do something that impacted your ability to do your best in the interview. And so this is an area that is so interesting. And if you really want to understand a little bit more about self-sabotage and the barriers we put on ourselves and the limits that we put on ourselves, the book called The Big Leap is really fascinating, that talks about the growth and the fixed mindset and how we do these things to ourselves many times, really without even realizing it. And so that's where your noticing superpower comes in so handy, because the first step in being able to do something about these things is awareness. So this week is about looking at our own behaviors and our own choices and how we may be doing some things that keep ourselves in this imposter syndrome situation and what we can do about it. So the reality is none of this fixes it. We do all these coping mechanisms and we do all of these things to hide out, and it doesn't make it any better, but we keep doing it. And it just does become this vicious cycle that it can get really exhausting and stressful over time. So there's 3 questions that she asks in the book that I'm going to put in the comments, and feel free to put your answers in the comments, or at least just think through them, because I think that a lot of times we will make choices. There's something in it for us. There's some reason that we're making these choices to hide out. So what are we getting from it? You wouldn't think that there would be a benefit to procrastination or over preparing, but why do we do these things then? What's going on that's providing us some value? We must be getting something out of it. So these questions really kind of step you through the thought process for why might I be doing some of these hiding out strategies. So one of the things she talked about in the book was this phrase, or this word I've never heard before, but I can totally relate to it. It's called awfulizing. And I can go from 0 to disaster in a matter of seconds. And what if myself crazy with all these ideas that almost always never ever happen. And so that's one of the things I'm trying to really watch more of for myself, is to stop my brain when those happen and say, it's thank you very much, but we're not going there today, and make a different choice there, because I can really fall into this awfulizing things so quickly. So what can we do about these situations where we're hiding out? Taking action increases confidence. Taking action gives you information about these things. So if you have one of these things that you're doing and you are using that as a coping mechanism, you can take some steps to try to understand why. One of the things that I've learned recently, and I absolutely love this, is that when we find that we're experiencing some fear about a situation, or there's just something going on that maybe it's one of these coping mechanisms, is that instead of looking at it as fearful, get curious about it, ask questions, and sort of become a detective. And this, I think, really can help amplify your noticing power. So if you find yourself in a situation, let's just say over preparing, for example, ask yourself, well, I wonder why I'm doing that. I wonder what's making me want to over prepare in this situation. And then you're going to get an answer, and then get more curious. Well, I wonder why that's happening. And just start asking questions. Be curious like you were a detective to figure out these things. And then you'll get some more information that's going to help you, I think, feel more confident about taking some action in this case. So this week, hiding out. Again, I think we're getting pretty close to wrapping up sort of a framework of what the imposter syndrome is. And soon we're going to go into looking at some specific techniques and things that we can do to, as the title says, thrive in spite of this. So, which implies it's not going to go away. So we need to recognize it, acknowledge it, turn those things around more quickly in our thoughts. I think that's another strategy, is with our noticing. Once you do that, is being able to flip that switch much more quickly when you find those thoughts coming into your head. So next week, the true reason behind your success. This one sounds so interesting. I haven't read it yet. Looking forward to it. And again, put your comments below. Let me know your takeaways. Let me know other things that maybe you'd like to, topics you'd like to cover. And I'll put the 3 questions in the comments below so that you can go through those. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.